So it's great to be sharing with you this morning. My name's Mark. I'm part of the leadership team here at Jubilee. Today's message. So first of all, I really hope today's message is something that challenges us, but also helps us feel refreshed and not a reset, but kind of like energized. So it's a bit like that song, New York, New York. It's named twice. So today's message is, we are enthusiastically servant-hearted. Or if you want a very, very similar but slightly different alternate title, we are servant-hearted followers of Jesus. So some of the leaders in our family of churches, our worldwide family of churches, regions beyond, have tried to put into words some of the values that are part of our church's shared DNA across the globe. And they've tried to put this concept into words and come up with this wording. We are all called to be servants who die to ourselves for the benefit of others. It's our longing to see this fully modelled in every area of life. We're all called to be servants who die to ourselves for the benefit of others. It's our longing to see this fully modelled in every area of life. Okay, so the wording's a bit posh. We don't really talk like that in Hull, fully modelled in every area of life. But what that means is we live it out. We live it out. It's not just talked and taught about, or even worse, it's not just deliberately showcased in one particular highly visible area of life, but in other areas of life we are very much all about self. We're called to live it out authentically in every area of our lives. We're called to walk the walk, not to talk the walk. We're called to be authentically a servant-hearted people. And I think last week, hit me like a real challenge. We are called to embrace the poor. And that's a challenge. But it's also an asymmetric challenge. We live in an affluent country, and that challenge to embrace the poor weighs heavier on us than the people that we work with in Malawi. It weighs heavier on us because we have more. It weighs heavier on those of us that are more blessed with material things. But when it comes to being a servant, being servant-hearted, being an enthusiastic, servant-hearted follower of Jesus, it's an all-play game. It applies to each and every one of us in equal measure. And I've got 5 stages of servant living that I'm going to share with you. I'll tell you what they are, because when I'm preaching, you might not actually be able to pick them out if I get a bit kind of like excited and tied up in different areas. And then at the end, I'll probably tell you what I've told you. So these are, for today, the 5 stages of servant living that we're going to look at. Number 1, we die to ourselves and we follow Jesus. Christ is the Lord of our lives. And that's basically it. That anchors everything. Everything else just follows on from that point. Everything else is just an outwork. And we were singing that song, How Great Thou Art. How great Thou art. And we die to ourselves and we choose that person to be Lord of our lives. That's it. If we grasp that, we don't need anything else. We don't need instruction and preaching and teaching. It'll just happen. It'll just happen, and it'll just become the fruit of that, Lord, I want you to be number 1 in my life. Number 2, we choose His will over our own self-will. We choose to put others before self. Number 3, we choose to meet the needs of others, especially those in the household of God, by serving them. And we do so with a right heart. Number 4, we still get to enjoy our lives. We guard against fake religiosity. And finally, number 5, we work all of this out in community. Not always getting it right, accepting that it's messy, and forgiving each other always. So a servant, when I say servant, I start thinking about those TV kind of like costume dramas. And I'm not a big one for costume dramas on TV, but I'm guessing we more or less have all got a handle of the big stately home, the posh rich people upstairs, and the servants who are generally downstairs, and all those little bells that they have on the wall, because it's always Victorian era. Everything happened in the Victorian era. And then like one of those little bells starts going ding, 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 ding. And then the servants kind of like looking at each other, maybe grumbling, maybe moaning a bit. Oh, it's, the uppity one. Better go and see what his lordship wants. Or it's, it's what's she done now? What's she want like us to do? Put a toothpaste on her toothbrush again. And then they go and they do the job. I'm showing my age of when I used to watch lots of TV, but I really liked Jeeves and Wooster when that was on TV. And Stephen Fry played... Sorry, I know loads of you have got no idea what I'm talking about, so just... just appreciative listening. It will add nothing to your life, but it's not going to take long, and I enjoy it. But Jeeves and Wooster, Stephen Fry was the butler to this rich guy called Wooster. And there was a lot of eye-rolling going on when the Lord, Wooster, kind of like said, do this, do that, do the other. And there were nearly always stupid requests because Bertie Wooster was basically an imbecile. And I guess the point here is, it's not just about being a servant that we're called to be. Because actually, when we look around, a servant is someone who does things for somebody else. And it is possible to be good at doing things for somebody else, but not actually appreciate the person that you're doing them for. Some of these people in these costume dramas, and that's probably got some echo of reality. Butlers, professional maids, probably do their job very well, but don't all appreciate the people that they work for. But we're called to be servant-hearted. Servants who die to ourselves for the benefit of others. We're called to be servants in the mold of Jesus. So let's get into this. First of all, there is no neutral ground. In 1979, Bob Dylan said, you've got to serve somebody. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you've got to serve somebody. A.W. Tozer, a famous Christian author, explained it like this in his book, The Radical Cross, Living the Passion of Christ. In every Christian's heart, there is a cross and a throne. And the Christian is on the throne till they put themselves on the cross. Now, this is deep. There isn't really like a little kind of like doll's chair in your heart, and there isn't really a little kind of like piece of wooden cross in your heart. It's an image word, but deep within ourselves, in the very core of our being. In other words, it's saying we are serving ourselves. It's all about us at the center. We are on the throne. And we have to die to ourselves to come off that throne. And that's the cross in our heart. We have to die to ourselves to no longer be at the center of everything we stand for and no longer to be on our throne. And Tozer says this, if they refuse the cross, then they remain on the throne. And perhaps this is the bottom of all the backsliding and the worldliness among gospel believers today. We want to be saved, but we insist that Christ do all the dying. No cross for us, no dethronement, no dying. We remain king within our own little kingdom of our soul. So basically it comes down to this. We're called to not live a selfish life, but we're called to live a selfless life. And the Bible talks about not being selfish and not being motivated by selfish ambition in many, many occasions. And it's a challenge to us because actually we are born the other way. We are born thinking that the world revolves around ourselves. And as young children, that is our mindset. It's all about having our needs met. I mean, I say young children. Children get older, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer for some of those very young mindsets to come out of them. And in our house, we have many teenagers who maybe are still learning one or two of these things. So at Christmas, let me tell you this little story. At Christmas, we're at the dinner table, and obviously it's Christmas. There's loads of boxes of chocolates, and Terry shares out 9 chocolates. By the way, this is not a great story of Terry being a servant and sharing that which is hers. These were not Thornton's Continentals. These were not Ferrero Rocher. These were Milk Tray that she was trying to get rid of. They're not a premium chocolate. So we're at the dinner table, we're eating our dinner, and Terry goes, I've got some chocolates, you can all have some chocolates. Samuel, you can have 3. Jürgen, you can have 3. Anna Hayne, you can have 3. Now, Samuel obviously is a fast eater, so yum, 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 yum. The main course is eaten, yum, yum, the 3 chocolates are eaten. Hannah also pretty speedy at eating, yum, yum, the main course is eaten, yum, the 3 chocolates are eaten. Jürgen is a more leisurely eater. You might say it's because she's telling us all stories all the time, rather than actually getting on and eating her food. You might say that. So Jürgen is a little bit behind the pace, and she finishes her food. And she begins to move towards her chocolates, at which case Samuel says, give me chocolate, which is maybe not, the most erudite way to ask your sister for something, but, he's asking for one of her chocolates. So I said, no, Samuel, it was 3 for you, it was 3 for Anna Hayne, it was 3 for Jürgen. They're not yours, they're Jürgen's. Why are you asking? And he just looked at me and said, because I want them. As if that was the greatest answer in the whole world, and fully rebutted the laws of sharing and the fact that once the sharing allocation's been set in place, it can't be renegotiated. Because I want them. And that's just a really stupid and trivial story, but that internal want overriding the situation causes all sorts of strife and turmoil. I was going to tell you a poignant story about a woman who left her children at home so she could go on holiday with her boyfriend. I want, I deserve, I just have to. My need overriding the situation. And here's the really sad thing. I went to search it up and look at one or two of the national newspaper websites and find it. And it's not that I couldn't find it, the one I was thinking about. It's that I couldn't separate the one I was thinking about from all the other cases where this has happened and been reported in the newspapers over the last few years. Time and time again, the same story. The woman leaves the children, goes on holiday, and this is one that's reported. Either the children don't quite manage to look after themselves and somebody finds them and it gets reported and they get looked after and they're taken to care, or multiple occasions they are infants and they're left with food and water but insufficient, and the mother comes back to find the child is dead. And it's always a vulnerable woman who doesn't have enough ballast to put others' needs in front of her own need. Let's turn to the Bible and let's root ourselves in the Word of God. If you're picking up any of the 5 points, well done. In Luke 22, verses 33, and I'm going to stop at 42, Jesus, This is the night that Jesus was betrayed, the night that Jesus was arrested, and the events that led just before Jesus going to the cross. Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." And that's the punchline. Not my will, but yours be done. And there's another scripture that talks about Jesus did this for the joy that was set before him. And we need to get away from any kind of thinking that, oh my word, this is all terribly hard work. I'd really prefer just to look after myself and not have to look after my brother and sister and be nice and good to them. And others that aren't even my brothers and sisters in the faith. Oh, it just all sounds like it's really heavy and it's just going to be, I know we need to do it, but what a life. We need to get away from any notion of that kind of thinking. Here, the cross, the joy that is set before him, that Jesus embraces the cross. But even though he embraces the cross, he's still saying in this moment, if you are willing, take this from me, but not my will, but your will be done. And that's the punchline. Not self, but others before self. And selfishness is living in a way that serves your own will, your own needs and wants. It's the want to do something, the want to have something, the want to be something. And others before self is what we're called to. If we look in Galatians 6 verses 8 to 10, whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. See, we're here to meet each other's needs. Are we a bunch of do-gooders? 100%. We are a bunch of people and we do good. We are those that do good. But it ain't serving others and doing good through gritted teeth. I wanted to watch Coronation Street. Why am I doing this? It ain't that. It's a heart thing. It's a heart thing. So let's look in Joshua 22 verse 5. Be very careful to keep the commandments and the law Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you. To love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, to keep his commands, to hold fast to him, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of the TV servant serving with a bad attitude. In fact, for us, doing it with the wrong attitude isn't Christian serving. It just isn't Christian serving. If you've got a purple t-shirt on today and you've harbored resentment about everyone you said hello to, you weren't serving us. I mean, you might have been faking it so well that we didn't notice, but we weren't being spiritually served by a welcome at the door. Fortunately, I know everybody in the purple t-shirts is amazing, so that would never happen. Although number 5, we live in community and it's messy and we don't always get it right and we love each other. Serving with the wrong attitude isn't Christian serving. It's not just a heart thing, it's a complex thing. Because at its heart, it's spiritual, not practical. And it's not as simple as a line of selfish at one end and selfless at the other end, because selflessness needs to be properly understood. Because at times, we might be tempted or we might be subtly pressured to think it's something different. We might be tempted or pressured to think that selflessness is not the thing God intended it to be. The Apostle Paul found this in 1 Corinthians 9, verses 3 to 5. He finds himself in a position where he has to justify how he's working with his fellow apostles to the community of believers, because they're saying certain things about him. They're saying certain things about his lifestyle, the lifestyle of those that he's working with, even though they're humbly and eagerly discharging the ministry that they've got. And he says this is my defense to those who sit in judgment on me. Don't we have the right to food and drink? Don't we have the right to take a believing wife along with us, as do the other apostles and the Lord's brothers and Cephas? And sometimes we almost think there's something about being selfless, that piousness is selflessness. Being an ascetic is selflessness. Pious means like deeply religious and visibly following all the morals and the ethical codes of a religion. Ascetic is someone who eschews, doesn't go for the worldly things. Someone who imposes severe self-discipline and abstention from all forms of indulgence, typically for religious reasons. And you might be thinking, well, hang on a sec. That doesn't sound like really bad things. And I'm like, no, not at all. There's some real deep value in some of those things, some of those elements of piety, some of those elements of asceticism, and we are called to have self-discipline. But that's only to an extent, and they are not the thing. And we have the right to food and drink. And it doesn't need to be porridge and water. It can be steak and chips. And we can enjoy our steak and chips. It's not that a selfless life is a life of no fun, a life of nothing, a life of nothing for self, because it's got to be for others. We need to eat and drink. We live in society. We can enjoy our lives and still serve our brothers and sisters. We don't need to tie ourselves up in knots about it. We can enjoy living our own life in faith and still have a servant heart to our brothers and sisters. We're called to live deep and rich individual lives, and we're called to serve each other with a good heart. And we hold those two in tension, but both are possible all the time. And finally, it's worked out in community, in real relationship with people, and it's messy. In Matthew 18, 21 to 22, there's a lovely little bit which is in a bigger parable, which I really recommend you reading. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times?" Jesus answered, "I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. And I don't think on the 78th time, like you get a pass out and you go, Jesus said 77 times, mate, you've just done it the 78th time, so no more forgiveness coming from me. I think Jesus just said, you say this number, I'm telling you, it's way bigger. It's a big, big number. And it's a great parable in itself with the meaning of the full parable. But this morning I want to extract this point from it. We need to forgive each other. Why do we need to forgive each other? Because we do the wrong things to each other. Not all the time, but sometimes. Sometimes, for some reason, we put ourselves before God or before each other, and we cause offense. We cause a situation. And when that happens, we are called to extend grace to each other. We're called to forgive and to extend grace and accept that that person might make the same or a different mistake again in the future. So it's a challenge to be servant-hearted and to have others before self. And at the heart of how we think and behave, hang on, I've botched that, let me try that again. I knew when I wrote this it was a sentence that was too complicated. It's a challenge to be servant-hearted and to have... Yes. It's a challenge to be servant-hearted and to have others before self at the heart of how we think and behave. It's complex. It's a complex, multifaceted thing. Because we work it out in community, and community is messy. Dan said, in our hearts, there are many things, just this morning in his prayer, so there are many things competing for attention. There are many things competing for attention. So if we can have the band back up, we're going to head back into worship. And above everything else, that excitement about being a follower of Jesus, choosing his will, not our will, but that choice giving us this exciting ministry, and one element of that ministry that we have, going through life, walking with Jesus, is to meet the needs of each other, to be servant-hearted, to have a servant heart towards each other. If there's anything else I can get across, if there's one thing I want to get across this morning, is that it ain't drudgery. It's hard, but it's an amazing ride. So the 5 stages of servant living were, number 1, we die to ourselves to follow Jesus. And everything else just works itself out from Jesus being the Lord of our lives. But number 2 was we choose his will over our own self-will. And we choose to put others before self. Number 3, we choose to meet the needs of others, especially those in the household of God, by serving them, and we do so with a right heart. Number 4, we still get to really enjoy our own lives, our own individual lives, our own family lives, and we guard against fake religiosity. And number 5, I said 5 when I meant 4, didn't I? So number 5, we work this all out in community. Not always getting it right, accepting it's messy, and forgiving each other always. Thank you.